Hi, I'm Adrian, 36, single dad, still learning how to hold my temper when the people who should protect your kid are the same ones who keep breaking him. It started with a bike. Not just any bike, the kind my son, Lucas, had circled in catalogs and taped on his bedroom wall. The kind with the matte black frame and red trim that made his eyes light up like fireworks. Took me nearly a year of overtime and skipped takeout lunches to afford it. When he saw it, he cried. Real tears. The kind that make you forget every bad day at work. We were supposed to have a simple family weekend at my mom's place potluck, lawn chairs, laughter that only lasts until Kyle opens his mouth. My older brother, Coach Kyle, high school football hero turned adult bully. Everything's a competition. I'm the soft one, the sensitive one. He calls me Pinterest Dad. Lucas couldn't help himself. He told his cousins about the new bike. The twins, Jack and Tyler, wanted to ride it. I said no gently. Kyle smirked, like parenting was a weakness. $700 for a 9-year-old? He laughed. That's your first mistake. I almost let it roll off me almost. But when I came back from helping Mom with the cake, the driveway looked like a crime scene. The bike lay on its side, tire warped, frame dented. The twins stood over it, baseball bats in their hands, grinning. Lucas just stood there, frozen, eyes shining with that awful disbelief kids get when they realize the world isn't fair. Kyle leaned against his truck, sipping from a red cup. Watching. They're kids, he said when I shouted. Can't freak out every time someone touches your precious toys. Mom came out, looked once at the crushed metal, then sighed. They didn't mean it, honey. Boys will be boys. Lucas was sobbing now, quiet, embarrassed sobs, and all I could think was how many times that phrase had covered for cruelty in our family. I didn't scream, didn't argue, just took his hand, loaded what was left of the bike into the SUV, and drove off. We didn't say goodbye. We didn't look back. But as we drove, I could feel something shifting inside me, something that had been stretched too far for too long. And I didn't know it yet, but that was the last day I'd ever let my family teach my son what love was supposed to look like. The silence after betrayal has its own sound. It's not loud. It's heavy. Like the air itself is waiting for you to finally fall apart. When we got home that night, Lucas didn't cry anymore. He just stared at the floor of the car and whispered, "Can we fix it?" I didn't have the heart to lie. "We'll try, buddy." The bike wasn't just bent, it was ruined. Every repair shop told me the same thing. It's totaled. One guy even said, "This looks like someone took a bat to it." Yeah, someone did. Lucas nodded when I told him, eyes dull, and went to his room. That was the moment I realized something. He wasn't just sad about the bike. He was learning what betrayal looks like when it wears your family's face. A week passed before the next hit came. 4th of July. Mom's annual backyard circus grill smoke. Cheap fireworks. Kyle acting like a celebrity in his own driveway. I wasn't going to go, but Lucas wanted to leave a gift for his grandpa in the old shed, something he made in art class, a key holder carved with grandpa's tools. Just for him, he said. So I gave in. It started fine. Then Kyle's twins showed up with water balloons. I should have known. One hit Lucas square in the chest. Another smacked his face. He flinched, dripping, blinking hard not to cry. "They're just water balloons," Kyle called from the porch, beer in hand. Dana, his wife, gave that tight smile that says don't make a scene. I got Lucas inside, handed him a towel, and felt something dark and cold settle behind my ribs. I'd spent my whole life trying to be the calm one, the rational one. But calm wasn't working. It never had. We left early. That night, I lay awake listening to Lucas breathe through the wall. The boy who used to hum in his sleep was silent now. And for the first time, I realized maybe the only way to protect him was to stop pretending family meant safe. 2 weeks later, the line finally snapped. Lucas had been saving for months, selling old toys, doing chores, even skipping candy after school. He wanted to buy a Lego robotics kit, the kind that lets kids code real moving parts. He called it his next big invention. When it arrived, he tore open the box like it was Christmas morning, sat cross-legged on the floor, arranging every piece by color, every sensor by size. He didn't even touch his dinner, just whispered, "Look, Dad, it's going to move." The next day, I had to run errands. My mom offered to watch him. "We'll be fine," she said. I believed her. When I got home 2 hours later, the house was too quiet. Lucas was in his room, surrounded by wreckage, snapped wires, shattered sensors, broken plastic arms. His hands sat limp in his lap. "They took it," he whispered. My stomach sank. "Who?" "Tyler and Jack. Grandma let them in." I walked straight to the living room. Mom looked up from the couch, calm as a Sunday. "You let Kyle's kids in?" "Well, yes, they were in the neighborhood." Kyle said they could stop by. They destroyed Lucas's robotics kit. She frowned, waving her hand. Oh, for heaven's sake, Adrian, it's just toys. You're making a mountain out of a molehill. No, they wrecked something he built, something he earned. Her tone hardened. They're children. You need to stop treating them like criminals. That word children felt like a slap. I turned away before I said something I'd regret. Lucas looked up at me from the floor when I came back in. Can we fix it? This time, I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because deep down I knew the truth. Nothing about this was ever going to be fixed until someone finally stopped letting Kyle and Mom rewrite what family means. That night, when Lucas finally fell asleep, I sat in the dark at the kitchen table. And for the first time in my life, I made a plan. Not for peace. For consequences. I told myself I wasn't going to be the kind of person who giddily plotted revenge. I lied to myself for all of 2 days. The truth is, anger is persuasive. It makes you efficient. It turns heartbreak into a task list. First thing I did was make the safe, boring choices stuff that looks like adulting, not drama. I took pictures. Not the angry dad with a phone kind, but methodical, forensic pictures, serial numbers, snapped plastic under magnification, the crushed corners of the instruction book. I dated every photo, backed everything up to 2 different drives, emailed copies to myself in a new account with a password that required a small legal disclaimer to type. I filed a police report about the robotics kit. Officer Garcia's steady hands, tired eyes didn't roll his. He wrote everything down like it mattered. And for the first time in months, someone validated that this wasn't kids being kids. It wasn't a drama, it was evidence. That felt strangely liberating. Then I started to look sideways at Kyle. Not at his smug smile, not at his truck, but at the scaffolding beneath it, the places where small cruelties get dressed up as tradition. I remembered things friends had muttered over beers and teachers had hinted at between parent-teacher conferences. There were rumors, sure, missing inventory here. A parent who suddenly decided they weren't going to donate after all, but rumors don't topple kingdoms. Documents do. Paperwork does. Receipts do. I reached out to Jeremy. Cousin Jeremy, the family's resident exile, the one who lives with 3 monitors and a disdain for small talk. He answered in under 10 minutes with a single emoji-less sentence. Tell me everything. I sent him the police report, the photos, a shaky list of incidents stretched across a decade. Then I stopped. For the first time, I felt like I had a co-conspirator who didn't know Kyle anything. Jeremy did the stuff I didn't know how to do without turning the whole thing into high theater. He taught me how to request public records without pinging Kyle's defenses. He showed me how to scrape Booster Club minutes and cross-reference them with local vendors. He laughed softly, delighted when we found a pattern. Teams listed as having new helmets the same month Kyle's boys were photographed wearing identical gear. This lines up, he said. Not circumstantial anymore. Every find felt like a tiny admission of the obvious. This was habitual, not a one-time mess, a system. I kept thinking of Lucas, standing in the driveway like a small island of disbelief, and something like righteous calm filled me. If Kyle had been allowed to farm out consequences for years, I could at least be the thing that made him pause. Or fall. One of the two. I compiled the files the way you'd build instructions for a complicated Lego set, clear tabs, dates, scanned receipts, screenshots of Booster Club posts, cross-referenced emails, and a timeline that read like a slow-motion reveal. I called it Kyle Audit, with the kind of dry humor that's almost a defense mechanism. It felt ridiculous to smile about a folder of other people's wrongdoing, but there it was. Then came the moral gymnastics. I wanted this to be clean, legal, and meticulous. So I looped in Officer Garcia's notes, anonymized names where necessary, and paid for a short consult with an attorney, cash, small office downtown, no frills. The lawyer didn't promise dramatic outcomes. She said the same thing Officer Garcia did. You're building a record. That was the word I needed. Record. Debt collectors have ledgers. Bullies have patterns. I was building the ledger. A week of slow, careful work later, I had everything queued. The timing mattered too early, and it would get brushed off. Too late, and Kyle would be the one crowing about his promotion. Fate helped. The district was about to vote on a bond for the athletic facilities, and Kyle was predictably positioning himself for the athletic director role. If the files landed now, they'd be impossible to ignore. Coincidence, or a nudge from whatever universe watches over petty, satisfied people. Either way, it was the opening I needed. Before I hit send, I drove to Mom's house. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to beg for an apology either. I wanted her to feel the quiet steadiness of my decision. She answered the door in the cardigan she loves, the one with the tiny tear near the hem I had rarely noticed before. Her smile was the practiced kind. It trembled when she saw my face. "Can we talk?" I said. She stepped aside. We sat at the kitchen table. I laid a printout on the table, a single page with one time-stamped photo from the robotics wreckage and a note. "You were there. You didn't stop it." She read it, then looked up like someone who had been given a puzzle without any of the pieces that used to make her comfortable. I told her, low and steady, that I'd been documenting things for months and that I intended to submit what I had to the proper people. I told her I wasn't looking for drama. I was looking for accountability, simple, blunt, adult. Her face folded in a way that made me think of summers when she patched scraped knees and pretended to fix everything with kisses. "Adrian," she said, voice small. "He's my son. So is Lucas," I said. "And I'm his father." She sighed, the old reflex toward smoothing things over. I didn't let her finish. I had already made a decision that had nothing to do with making her comfortable. I had a child who'd learned that boys will be boys means the powerful never pay for what they do to the small. I wasn't going to make that lesson part of his education. A few days later, at 7:52 a.m. on a Wednesday, with my chest buzzing like a hummingbird, I pressed send on an anonymous email. Clean subject line: urgent financial irregularities in athletic department. Attachments: organized, indexed, and heavy with receipts and contradictions. Recipients: the superintendent, the booster club treasurer, a reporter who'd once asked hard questions at a town meeting. The message went out through a burner account routed in ways that made my stomach queasy. Jeremy's overcaution at work, but it needed to be untraceable. Not because I was cowed, but because being tied to it would make the whole thing about me instead of the offenses. I spent the rest of the morning pretending to be a normal father. Lucas wanted grilled cheese for lunch. We built a tiny sensor housing from spare parts. He told me a new joke that involved a robot and a very confused goldfish, and I laughed harder than I had any right to. My phone buzzed once, then again. Pictures of headlines I wasn't supposed to see. A text from Jeremy. "It's moving." There's a weird, small cruelty to watching the world change in real time through other people's reactions. People who hadn't called in months suddenly had opinions. Kyle posted on social media about smears and people with axes. Dana went through 3 filter-heavy photos of the twins at a tournament with captions like "Family First." Mom sent a single text that said, "I hope this is a mistake." On the inside, I felt a mixture of vindication and a peculiar guilty relief. None of it fixed Lucas's broken bike or the afternoons he'd spent with his chin on the windowsill, but the ledger existed now. Consequences were no longer an abstract concept. They were a file that could be opened, examined, and, if needed, acted upon. That night, Lucas asked if we could take Project Atlas for a test run. He'd soldered a new gripper from salvaged parts, and the thing could now pick up empty soda cans like a tiny, triumphant hand. He named the little program Pick Me Up, and I thought, not for the first time, that his resilience was superior to any of my plans. I tucked him in and stood in the doorway longer than usual. He was asleep before I turned off the light, a small silhouette under the blanket. My phone, face down on the dresser, buzzed into the dark with another news alert. The headlines were spreading beyond town now. People were starting to talk about accountability instead of family loyalty. I hadn't wanted to become the person who would set out to topple someone sheathed in community armor. But when the people who are supposed to teach kindness keep excusing cruelty, sometimes kindness needs a backbone. I fell asleep with that in my chest, equal parts fear and weary certainty. By sunrise, the storm was real. Not metaphorical, not emotional, real. Emails, calls, chatter on local forums. Kyle had been pulled out of a staff meeting mid-sentence. The school board was calling an urgent internal audit. Jeremy texted me a single phrase, "Bullseye." By noon, the story hit the local news site. Allegations of misuse of funds in district athletics program, anonymous tip, sparks investigation. They didn't name Kyle, but they didn't need to. Every coach in that district wore the same school logo, but only one strutted like he owned the place. The parents knew. The players knew. His name didn't have to be in print for people to connect the dots. By that evening, Dana had posted one of her signature long-winded Facebook defenses. People love to tear down those who work hardest. It began, followed by a collage of family photos with captions about loyalty and fake friends. The comments started sympathetic, "You two don't deserve this." But within hours, someone uploaded screenshots of district invoices missing matching serials. Then a parent posted a photo of Kyle's twins wearing identical helmets the team had supposedly returned. The crowd turned fast. I didn't celebrate. Not exactly. I sat in the dark living room, watching Lucas program Project Atlas to wave on command, while my phone buzzed every few minutes with new headlines. The kind of poetic justice that feels too symmetrical to be real. The school board statement arrived the next morning. Coach K, name withheld pending investigation, has been placed on administrative leave. That was the professional death sentence. Athletic director bid gone. Booster club meetings canceled. His kingdom stripped bare. And yet, what hit me hardest wasn't the vindication, it was the silence afterward. My mom didn't call. Not to defend him. Not to condemn me. Just silence, like she'd finally run out of excuses. A week later, she showed up at my door. No warning, no preamble. Just stood there holding a small cardboard box, looking 10 years older. I came to return these, she said quietly. Inside were pieces of Lucas's first robotics kit, the destroyed one. The one she'd insisted was just toys. She'd kept them. For months. I didn't know what to do with them, she whispered. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten. I didn't respond. Not right away. I let her stand there in that silence she used to fill with reasons. Finally, she said, you did what I couldn't. You protected him. That was the closest thing to an apology I was ever going to get. When she left, Lucas came in holding Project Atlas, the rebuilt arm. Dad, he said, watch this. The robot lifted a can, turned, and gave me a slow, perfect thumbs up. And I swear to you, I almost laughed. Because somehow, through all the wreckage, my kid had built hope out of scrap metal. But the story wasn't finished. Because Kyle wasn't done falling yet. The next few weeks felt like living inside an echo. Everywhere I went, I heard whispers at the grocery store, the gas station, even the park. Did you hear about Coach K? They say it's bad. He's lucky he's not in jail yet. The town that used to worship him was now dissecting him. The same parents who once wore his team colors now clucked their tongues and said they always had a bad feeling. That's how people work. Loyalty evaporates the second the wind shifts. The investigation spread faster than anyone expected. Turns out, once auditors start digging, they never stop at the first bone. They found missing receipts, inflated invoices, personal charges buried under team expenses. It wasn't just sloppy bookkeeping, it was theft. Years of it. Kyle tried to play the victim, of course. He stormed into the school board meeting demanding reinstatement, blaming disgruntled parents and tech nerds with too much time. Classic him when caught, double down. But this time, his swagger didn't land. One of the reporters who'd been following the story published a timeline with receipts. Actual receipts. Pages of them. By the end of the month, the school district released an official statement. Coach Kyle M. has been terminated pending criminal review. It hit the local news the next morning. Dana took the kids and went to her sister's. The house went up for sale 2 weeks later. When I saw the listing online, 4-bed, 3-bath, quiet neighborhood, I almost laughed. Quiet. Yeah, I bet it was now. But the strangest thing was how normal my life felt through all of it. Lucas and I just kept living. Homework, bike rides, late-night coding sessions. The world that had revolved around my family's approval suddenly shrank to the two of us, and it was enough. Then, one afternoon, I saw him. Kyle. At the grocery store. He looked deflated, like someone had turned down his volume. No swagger, no smirk. Just a man pushing a cart with the weight of consequences hanging off his shoulders. He saw me. For a second, I thought he might say something. Apologize, maybe. But he didn't. Just looked down and turned away. And that was when it hit me. Revenge wasn't about seeing him suffer. It was about seeing him small. Human. Stripped of the armor his ego had always worn. I didn't follow him. Didn't gloat. Just paid for my groceries and walked out into the sunlight. At home, Lucas was waiting by the garage with his bike. The new one. Not fancy, not expensive, but his. Race you to the park, he grinned. And I realized that for the first time in years, I didn't need to win anything. I just needed to ride. 2 months later, the audit report went public. Misuse of funds, falsified invoices, personal purchases under the school's name, all confirmed. Kyle lost his license to teach. The district sent the findings to the state attorney's office. Real charges this time. Mom called once, left a voicemail I never returned. Something about how the family's falling apart. I almost laughed. It wasn't falling apart. It was just finally showing the cracks that had been there all along. Lucas, meanwhile, was thriving. He got into a junior robotics mentorship, built his own mini rover that followed voice commands, and was already planning his next project. Every time I watched him work, I thought this is what healing looks like. Not revenge, not payback. Just a kid, rebuilding his world in the image of kindness instead of cruelty. And me? I stopped checking the news. I didn't need updates. The story had already ended where it needed to. Last weekend, Lucas and I went biking along the old river trail. The sun was low, the path empty. At the top of the hill, he stood on the pedals, laughing, hair whipping in the wind. "Did we win?" he called. I caught up, breathless but smiling. "Yeah, buddy," I said. "We did." And maybe that's what peace really is, not the absence of anger, but the moment you realize you don't need to look back to make sure they saw you right away.